Hello there. You have found yourself once again listening to the Exit Light podcast. This is episode 11, and I am your storyteller, Eli Beals. This time around, I have a story for you titled The Walk. And this story has a little story attached to it, in the sense that I had originally written it and submitted to the Exit Light. I submitted this to my own podcast, and I rejected it. No, I sent it off to the Grey Rooms podcast, and they accepted it for their 5th season, and unfortunately the 5th season didn't happen. So no hard feelings, former roomies. You'll get them. Just keep at it. Yeah. Anyways, I sent it off to my friends at the Horrific podcast, and they put this up in astoundingly quick period of time. So thank you, Colin and Cameron, for the previous story that you produced for me. Thank you. You guys are doing wonderful work. You're helping people get the exposure and helping them build the confidence to keep doing it, because that's what's most important, to keep going. And that's kind of what happens to my character. Maybe not in a good way, or maybe it is, depending on who you are and how you look at things. But I must warn you that there are some pretty intense themes involved with this, some suggested sexual assault, and also some descriptions of intense bodily trauma. So please be aware of that. And without any further discourse, I will just put the story on. Happy Halloween. The Walk, written by Eli Beals. Like some kind of massive organism, the city is waking. Its various moving parts, such as cable cars, street vendors, and those ever-present sirens, begin to spin up to banish the early morning quiet. I have come to cherish that brief moment in between the evening bustle and the frenetic morning rush. It's a span of about 2 hours where it's peaceful. Aside from the occasional jogger or dog walker, I pretty much have the city to myself. I can see the bay twinkling in the morning sun as the fog melts away. Up until now, I haven't really taken the time to appreciate the beauty of it. Up until now, I had full control over my body. Up until now, I didn't really know what it meant to be truly afraid. I'm past the shock of it. My destination is clear. I'm already through all the stages of grief and whatnot. So here it is. My confession, my silent speech to the cosmos or to anyone listening. I suppose I'm more reflective on why this is happening to me at this point, rather than the what. And maybe there's something I'm missing. The woman on the street would have the answer, but she is several blocks up the hill, and I suspect she wouldn't tell me anyway. That look in her eye as she let me go said it all. It said, Burn in hell, Daniel. Watching the water, I think I will have to drown before I burn. I wonder how cold it is in contrast to the warm sun caressing my back. The transients in this town can get a little bit in your face sometimes. It's a problem that everyone seems to know how to solve, but does nothing about. That's not meant to make anyone feel guilty. Just think of your solution critically and ask yourself, would that really fix it? The answer is there is no answer. We all make choices to some degree. It's what makes us human. It's what makes us good or evil, and both. My own evil keeps pace with me to the beat of that woman's seething accusations. She called me a liar. She saw what I did. She called me a bad person. She wasn't wrong. Making eye contact with them is a sure way to invite interaction. So most people in this town are conveniently distracted, either looking at their phones or up at the skyscrapers, anywhere but those desperate eyes. I don't know why I stopped. Maybe I was surprised that this person I mistook for a pile of trash was speaking to me. Maybe it was her vibrant blue eyes that arrested me, kept me from escaping. Maybe it was something else. Does a fly wonder how it found itself trapped in the web? No. Like the fly, I did my damnedest to get away, but she was so strong, immovable, like she was bolted to the concrete. My mistake was reaching in close to offer some cash. Cash I hoped would shut her up. Cash that was meant for a latte, and a chance to hit on the raven-haired barista. That's when she grabbed me with viper-like speed. Stunned, I let the money flutter to the ground. It was either that every ounce of strength I possessed drained from me then, or this tiny bundle of a woman was very, very strong. Before I could think to call for help or do anything drastic, she let go, straining as I was to pull away. The sudden release had me staggering backwards, arms pinwheeling to retain balance. She cackled when my heel landed directly into a mound of feces and slid. The smell wafting up informed me that the recent deposit probably wasn't canine. Her shrill, corvid laughter followed me as I ambled forward and away from her, scraping a brown smear on the sidewalk as I did so. Before I was out of earshot, she said, in a sober voice bereft of mirth or emotion, like some kind of judge on an alabaster dais, "Go on then. Walk, Daniel. Walk," she said, like a verdict, like a death sentence. And so I walked. The forest green awning came into view. Ichabod's Coffee and Tea House, my favorite. Below that, an open door invited me in as it belched out the aromas of fresh espresso and toasted bagels. Mouth-watering, I could do nothing but rotate my head to watch it slide on by. The girl setting out the patio furniture gave me a familiar smile that turned to bemusement as I rubbernecked. Either she thought it was a funny bit of flirting, or she sensed something was off due to the hint of panic lighting in my eyes. I didn't really start freaking out until a block later. I simply could not stop walking. What would happen when I walked into a busy street? What would happen if I just walked into an open manhole? I began to grope at whatever looked like something that would anchor me, to immobilize me, but my feet were deftly keeping these things just out of reach. As if I were being pulled along a winding river without a boat or paddle, the current or directive allowed me only to view the shore but never reach it. I admit, I began to cry, and eventually scream for help. The city did what it usually does. It ignored me. In my desperation, I reached and lunged and grasped at anything around me. A carousel rack of postcards, a newspaper stand not quite attached to the ground, an elderly man walking his Shih Tzu. All of them toppled over, either spilling their contents or cursing loudly at me. It was when I stepped off the curb to cross a wide road that I heard it before I saw it. A car was approaching, just behind the crest of the steep hill, roaring its way up, powered by more horses than was strictly necessary. I was right in its path as it entered the intersection. Maybe the driver didn't see me. Maybe the driver just didn't care, but really laid on that horn as its back tire clipped the toe of my shoe. A brief, shocked face, hardly recognizable as my own, reflected in his blackout windows like an apparition. I thought of a cheeky thing to yell at his taillights, but I didn't do it. I just kept on walking. I see myself reflected in a storefront window. Hey, I know that guy, I think to myself. He slips women Rohypnol when they aren't looking, so they can't remember what happened the next day. He likes to tell himself it's just window shopping, sampling, test driving before making any kind of real commitment. He tells himself that he can stop whenever he wants. I watch the reflection collide head-on with another person. They spin to one side, sending a shopping bag full of produce flying, its contents bouncing and scattering all over the place. They utter a shocked, unintelligible caw before I am already 12 paces away. They yell and threaten me with police or an ass-kicking, maybe both. I've stopped apologizing for knocking people and random other things down, and I know something else. I have a following. I'm sure I am trending on TikTok and YouTube streaming, maybe even the morning news. There's so much chatter behind me. The cops did eventually show up, probably keeping people from outright murdering me. They tried to restrain me, even going so far as to shoot me up with paralyzing electricity. I was painfully aware of every nerve fiber in my body, as if something had a hold of my nervous system like a fistful of tethers, and was attempting to shake my myriad strings loose from me. But I kept on going. Maybe I passed out for a moment or two, though. It must have been a bizarre sight to see someone both unconscious and ambulatory at the same time. Now they are just confused, maybe a little scared. Stuff like this is not supposed to happen. I wonder if there's a priest back there as well, and if so, did they hear my confession? I was distressed, clutching at straws, ranting my sins out as if it would counter this compulsion to walk, hoping God, or at least the woman who cursed me, could hear and maybe just let me go free. I can almost hear her laughing at me. No, she says in my mind. No forgiveness for you, Daniel. I'm sure the dozen or so women I violated would say the same. I can smell the ocean now. It's the scent of white noise and salt. It smells of my final judgment. depths matched only by my own depravity, guilty as charged. Something loops around my waist and cinches tight before whatever is operating me can avoid it. It's uncomfortable. Then it is suddenly all the pain that I have ever felt in my entire life distilled into one single moment. The noose becomes a vice that tightens around my hips with every step I take, however small. Every centimeter I move forward is another compound fracture until I feel my pelvis collapse under the immense pressure, and all I can think about is how strong that rope is. The sole of a shoe is ripped away from sheer friction. My feet are still treadmilling as I feel a hot wetness seeping down my pant legs. Then nothing, as whatever was sending pain information to my brain up and quit. Now all I feel are vibrations, as the shattered bones grind against each other in the wet soup that is my lower torso. It's when I lose about 3 inches of height that I feel momentum again. It seems one of my shins had given out and decided to snap forward. I can hear my tibia scraping against the concrete as it drags in my lopsided lurch. They had to cut the rope. Otherwise, they'd have to watch me grind myself into little chunks. A sharp splatter of vomit hitting the pier behind me echoes against the storefronts. But other than that, it's like the entire city is holding its breath, silent, waiting. A passenger in my own broken body, I observe the serenity of the ocean, the distant haze and curve of the planet. The water embraces me fully in its frigid murk. And as I sink, I wonder if my bones will continue to walk long after I'm dead.